But in that, it says 2013 residential, 772 units. I can't make 772. I guess I could make 790. But I don't know why we're talking about 772.
Well, recognizing that that was a couple of months ago,
Okay.
What you have now, you have the proffers, you have this plan, you have this spreadsheet which identifies the different phases within the land base, which has been proffered and which will guide the development activity related to that site. So there may be some discrepancies in numbers. These are the numbers that we are working off of with respect to the proffers and the development regulations. And these numbers, we've worked back and tied those to the overall numbers of the development. We've tied the density in the urban core. One of our concerns was that, in fact, you've got an urban core, but somebody, if they sold a project, could come in and not develop at a density sufficient to meet the train station needs. We've tried to rectify all that as much as we can, and in some cases, such as an urban core, you've got a minimum build to in terms of your number of stories to make sure that it's actually dense enough to support the rail station.
Well, my concern is, A, bridges over the tracks tied to something, because even some service, I think number, time frame, something needs to dictate. The other is, I know that we're not on the hook for water, but do we know if we're going to drill, if additional wells are going to be drilled in there to provide water initially? Because, you know, we're all putting straws in the same cup. We're all pulling water from the same place. Has that been addressed? Can they go in and drill wells for water supply?
If you want, I will let you speak to the developer specifically about that. There have been several options that have been discussed in terms of additional water capacity.
Okay.
If you want specifics as to those discussions, or what they have looked at.
Well, I was trying to go through, I mean, I've got a zillion questions, and I've got all kinds of orange where answers have been, and I just haven't had time to look at all this.
Yes, sir, I understand that, and I told you I was going to be hard-pressed to get you your answers, but.
I am concerned about the other thing is if we're just going to drill more wells initially, what that really does to the west side of the county and water supply. And I'll be happy to have the applicant answer it.
I will say, except for that, any wells that would be drilled would have to be in accordance with our modeling. We have an on-call consultant that does modeling that we have used to identify water sources in the county. And I think we've been quite successful in using that consultant to identify production wells.
Okay. Mr. Sloan, good evening, sir.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to answer your question. We are obligated to follow the county's plan. The way we wrote our proffers is you tell us what you want us to do on the water. What we've said is we'd like to be able to explore making things more efficient. We have not asked for the ability to work off of wells. We haven't planned on wells. We haven't talked about wells. We've been told that other property owners in the area have explored wells and found them to be productive, but all we did with that information was make sure it was turned over to the county so that the county could fold it into their plans and look at what the most efficient plan was for the county. Just one note on your first question as well. In our first phases, we actually set it up so that we can get to Route 1 as well, and the first phases don't require any of the bridges to be built in those phases in order to serve the project. Those are all part of our internal roads, and we have the responsibility for all of those roads. The county has no responsibility for those. Happy to answer any other questions.
Well, I guess I'm back to wells or no wells.
You tell us.
What if we told you no wells?
If you told us no wells, that would be fine.
Okay.
We assume that would be part of your making a decision as to what of the multiple sources of water that you're exploring you've decided is the best source for the county. For example, we know that you're exploring with the city of Richmond. If that were the best source for the county and that's what your determination was, then that's what we would abide by.
Okay. But so initially you intend to just use the access over the tracks that you currently have in the initial phases of this development?
We set up our phases so that, and the reason we started from the point we did in our phasing was so that we didn't have to deal with those crossings. Those crossings actually become vital when you're doing the train station, but our initial phases are all outside the area that's necessary to have those crossings to access. We currently have a crossing across the rail. It's a surface level crossing. It's not the appropriate crossing for developing this type of project. So what we did was we set up the first, I think, 3 phases so that we come down from 207, but if you look at the phasing plan, we've set it up so that we can also reach the access point from Route 1 there as well. And our plan was if we were starting before the train station is there, then we would do that outside of the area that needed those crossings over the rail.
I guess my other question is, I've read in here several places where if VDOT requires you to move the entrance on 207, you're not planning or thinking of asking us to condemn any land to make a new entrance, correct?
No, this was something we were asked to do by the county, as agreed
I understand.
to move. We own the current entrance to the property on 207. What the proffer says is that if VDOT and the county decide that for safety's sake you need that entrance to move further down one direction, we'll cooperate in utilizing the new entrance that's identified.
And I guess I'm back to my first question. Nobody's anticipating us having to condemn any property to do that.
Since we own our access right now, we're anticipating that at the point you say, yes, move, that you have another way for us to get in our property, and you're not going to send us off to someplace that we can't actually get into our property. But that we assume is your negotiations with other landowners. They also need that access. So that's something that you guys are handling. We're not handling any of that.
Okay.
Mr. Seeley, the adopted Carmel Church area plan shows a different 207 access point for properties to the north and south from the current signalized intersection that serves Flying J, as well as a motel and the post office on the north side of 207. Too much development utilizing those existing access points will create the same problem that you have at the Route 652-207 intersection now, which has necessitated the Route 652 relocation. For a number of years, we have identified the need to relocate that existing signalized intersection at Flying J further to the west. There is a right-of-way which has already partially been constructed between Days Inn and the Travel Lodge on the north side, which is the point that's been identified for the ultimate relocation of that intersection. And as properties develop, that development would need to be consistent with that designation in the comprehensive plan. So this language was put in there when we pointed out to them that that existing intersection serving the Flying J may very well need to be relocated at some point in time in the future. And we just wanted them to recognize that that access is inconsistent with the adopted transportation element of the comprehensive plan.
But that will involve a piece of property that doesn't have an easement or a right-of-way through it currently on the south side.
That's correct, but that property will also have to develop at some point in time. That property was subject to a previous special exception permit, which is now void, that identified that road to be constructed as part of that development.
Is that part of the special exception that's now void?
Yes, it is, but if that property came in for some other development, they would still be subject to that access standard. That is one of our access management requirements.
So are they willingly going to do that, or are we going to have to condemn it?
We don't have to condemn anything, Mr. Seeley.
Okay.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, we don't have to condemn anything. And in fact, Phase 1, while they control access to 207, the actual access will be off of Route 1. They have 2 points of access, but the traffic impact analysis and the initial development of Phase 1 will actually be off of Route 1 and not 207.
Okay. I would just like the opportunity to read all my comments, since I'm virtually littered with.
I don't have to be at work until 6:30 a.m.
Well, I can sit here and start reading them now. I don't have an issue with that at all. I can be at work, tomorrow when I get there. If that's the will, I'll go through them one at a time. I'll do that. Right now? Right now. He's telling me to go ahead and go. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
To give Mr. Seeley a chance to read all those and compile them, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, if
Yes,
that's
sir.
all right. And I will say to the applicant and all those who came out and spoke for this project, they spoke in favor of it. The applicant jumped through all the appropriate planning hoops, and seems like a great project. In the back of my mind, I'm saying it's too good to be true. So I want to kind of dig a little and poke Mr. Thompson in the eye and make sure it is too good to be true. But I'm going to take him at his word for right now. But let's just review you and I our conversation this afternoon. Are the county proffers per dwelling cash are $17,000 and change per house?
The cash value
Cash value.
is 17,632, I believe, 36.
Okay. And that's, of course, basically set by the state, not by us, because if it was set by me, it would be like $50,000, but that's what we get from the state.
Well, that's based upon the parameters that the state has
Right.
advised us that we need to look at.
Okay.
And that includes the cost of any cash proffers, any land dedication, the value thereof, any improvements that are constructed.
Well, I'm kind of going to the land, but I'm just going to take a second to get there.
Yes, sir.
Now, of that $17,000 and change, cash value, in this particular project, we are going to get $5,500 in actual cash per dwelling unit.
Per dwelling unit with a annual multiplier based upon the consumer price index,
Right.
which is standard for any zoning that the board approves.
So at a minimum, it's $5,500. Inflation hits us tomorrow, prices go crazy. It could be $10,000 because it's based on the consumer price index. So I understand that.
Yes, sir.
Now, and there's 8,000 units. Just to make the math easy for me. It's a little more, but just to make the math easy. So 8,000 times 5,500 is actually $44 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay, over the lifetime of this project, cash proffers that the county could see, theoretically, we could dedicate that money to, I see a lot of school folks, school systems, and this is what I said to you when we were on the phone.
Yes, sir.
If we were to dedicate that solely to schools, we would have $40 million in 20 years to almost build 2 schools and pay cash for them. We could surely finance 2 schools with that money and then pay a little bit more. But that's basically what they're saying right now. Okay, now that's true. Now if I could ask Mr. Sloan for a second, and because I'm sure you've got all the numbers in front of you. Mr. Fincham said cash equivalent, and that includes any land that you've dedicated. So how much is the train station land worth?
We've got a number in the fiscal impact study, and I may need Mr. Thompson to help me. We have a number in there for the land for the train station itself, which
Right.
is quite valuable. The perhaps more valuable part is the land for the parking that goes next to it. As you might imagine, a train station is a relatively small sort of thing. The parking is something that over time begins as surface parking and then ultimately is in the form of structured parking in this sort of space. We also have
You
the
have a number?
track area. Tommy, do you have a number out of the fiscal impact?
For just the rail station.
For the rail station.
The rail station land?
I know it's in the multiple hundreds of thousands per acre for the rail station land. Other land is valued at lower levels. I don't have a number on top of my head.
Okay, well, he's going to be a while, so kind of work with me to figure that number out. And what I'm looking for, is, and this is where I'm going, is you're crediting the land value for the train station to the cash proffers in terms of services that I've got to provide. You're also crediting the land value for the school site that you're donating to the cash proffers that I'm supposed to get.
Right.
And you're crediting the government site too. So, I mean, I want to know how much that is. And as we always say, everything's kind of negotiable, right?
Well, we've followed the same procedures that you've used with other projects in giving credit for the land, in particular since that land also serves the community well beyond the project itself. And so for something like the train station, I'm not quite sure I'm following where you're going, because one of the
Okay.
reasons we get credit for it is this is a train station for the whole county. And
see,
the
the kind of-
parking's for the whole county. We probably won't need much parking for it since our residents will be walking to it.
Well, kind of the rub for me is instead of getting 40 million, I could get 50 million, and you're crediting back that train station land, and that's an integral part of your project.
As I just said, it's more for the county. The county can,
I'm doing fine now.
well, actually, you, the county, are the ones who said you wanted a train station.
Well, I
And
mean-
you developed a plan that said you wanted a developer to come in and develop around a train station.
That was really good, Dan. That was really good. But it ain't working here. I would like to have a Lamborghini outside when I go outside. It ain't happening. Okay? That train station, if that train station doesn't happen, your project doesn't really fly. Right?
Actually, we have property that's zoned for industrial use, and we'll use it for industrial purposes. The county's the one that spent several years thinking about what it wanted to look like and what it wanted to do there.
Yeah.
And as part of achieving that, the developer who owns the 1,000 acres around it has come forward and said, we'll give you the land to do that, we'll build the parking for that, we'll give you the land for the track expansion. They don't have to do that. And a moment ago, we were talking about condemnation. I don't think that you'd want to condemn these things.
That wasn't my
existence.
conversation.
I know, but
I'm just trying to make sure I mean, and the folks that were part of the plan are sitting over there. I think I can see that far. So
I'm
you
also...
know, I understand what they wanted, and I understand what the plan is, and I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying you've got a great project. It seems like a wonderful project. In my heart, I know once I do this, I can't back out of this. And whenever I get into a situation where I can't back out, I'm going to try to make sure I've done all my homework. And
I understand.
really, you know, we've kind of done that. You know, I've met with you guys a couple of times. I've met with Mike. And the one thing I'm kind of stuck on is you need that train station to make your project as is presented, right? If you don't get the train station, you don't get the project that's presented. I
We
don't get
do
the
a
$40
completely
million
different
for
type of
schools.
project. You're absolutely right. Without the train station, we do a completely different type of project, and the county has a completely different place there.
Right.
Doesn't have 3.16 million square feet of commercial there.
And I also don't have $40 million to give to the school system to build 2 new schools.
If we do the things that we're all planning together to do, you'll have a lot more than that. You've also seen the rest of the revenue figures for what happens over the course of the development of this project, and you have far more coming than simply the amount for the school.
You and I have had this exact conversation 18 years ago.
And you've come out of pocket for what since then?
But I didn't get anything
Oh,
that
wait.
I didn't get anything that was promised 18 years ago. That's all I'm saying. I'm just
I understand what you're saying, but you're talking about risk and exposure.
that's it.
And when we talk about risk and exposure, as opposed to hopes and expectations, it's a different thing. Your risk and exposure is controlled. Your risk and exposure here is controlled.
Well, I do have other alternatives such as the special tax district, those sort of things. You know, which you're going to go along with that?
We've actually
Well, you've-
made it explicit in our proffers that we agree to that. We made it quite explicit that if you go forward and do exactly what you've said, which, by the way, you haven't done with any other project, nor have you ever set it up this way, we agree to being set up so that we can do the special taxing for the roads, we can do the special taxing for the utilities, we can isolate the money that you're sort of questing for here for the schools. We've actually set up to support that.
So what you're telling me is you've basically done everything possible to mitigate the risk.
Absolutely. At this point, we have spent most of our time since, as you can imagine, the day we moved forward with this project, that was the central focus, is we don't want to be in a situation where we're risking. We, the county, said this was something we want to do, and yes, we want you to move it forward, but not with a risk to us. And
Okay.
that's what we've focused on.
So you basically you've kind of removed the risk for yourself, well, for the developer. To some degree, what you're saying now is you've removed some of the risk for the county.
I'm not sure where you believe that we've removed the risk for the developer. There's still lots of risk for the developer. That's part of development, and that's his decision.
Well, this is
to
American.
move-
We're
to
in
move
capitalism.
into that.
The bigger
That's
the
right.
risk, the bigger the return. I mean, I understand that part.
That's right. So I don't think we've removed the risk for the developer. What we have done is
Well-
focus on the risk for the county.
See, my risk, and I think that's the thing. Mr. Popowitz feels the train station is going to come. I think Mr. Akers. I think we all kind of do. I just can't feel that committal.
You know, right now, the environmental impact statement for the train station is being prepared.
That's what you said.
Oh, it's not just what I said. You can ask your staff, and the meetings have occurred, the scoping is there, the money is there, moving forward on the environmental impact statement for the train station. If there's not going to be a train station there, which, you know, there are circumstances, I guess you could come up and conclude, no, the EIS says you can't do a train station there. Not likely to happen because it's already had preliminary examination in it. But you're in a situation where you know, that no one can say, oh, it's impossible for, you know, for this not to happen. It just can't be done that way. But you're also in a situation where the concerns that this isn't going to happen have to fly in the face of the fact that it is happening, that it's on the state's plan. No one else has that circumstance, you know, in the immediate vicinity of you. An EIS is moving forward. So this isn't speculation. This isn't, we hope one day something will get started. This is real right now.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Fincham something then. Thank you, Mr. Sloan.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure always to talk to you. Mr. Fincham,
Yes, sir.
in the Progress, I believe it was, there was an article about this project. And the article, I believe, said that DRPT suggested the county talk directly to Amtrak and CSX about the rail station. Is Trying to recall the article without having it in front of me. Is that?
I don't believe that is a correct statement from my involvement in discussions with DRPT. DRPT has said they want to be the contact for any discussions with CSX or Amtrak. They do not want multiple party discussions.
Okay.
We have been included in the state rail plan through the DRPT process. I do not believe DRPT would have included this site if there was not some level of comfort within that organization that Amtrak service was not going to be a reality.
Okay, and really what you're basically saying is this discussion is between the state and two private entities to bring this here, and the county has, aside from this particular zoning, has little or nothing to do with it.
We have no direct access to CSX or Amtrak as part of these discussions, and that has been at the direction of DRPT.
Yeah, I hope Mr. Thompson and Mr. Sloan can see based on that. That's kind of the crux of my concern. But I understand. I think the horse is dead and I beat it enough. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Mr. Seeley, you ready for your,
I'm not done yet, Mr. Chairman.
your time limit may run out here soon, but you know, if you get them ready, we'll address them. I was being a little facetious about 6:30 a.m.
Mr. Chairman, I agreed with you that I would stay until, if you required it, that I would finish my comments tonight.
All right.
I just want you to know that my mother has given me a bedtime.
Okay.
So I don't know about you guys.
Mr. Chairman, are we going to continue this tonight, or are we moving forward?
It's the pleasure of the board.
I mean, I'd make a motion to continue this so that I could at least take a look at all the comments that I've gotten back and compare them to what the rewrite is. I'm just asking for, I had a lot of comments in here.
Yeah, I've been dealing with this project for about 7 years, and I'm pretty familiar with it. So personally, I think I'm ready to move forward. We'll take a consensus of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
We have a motion out there. We could see if there's a second for that.
I made a motion to continue this to the next board meeting.
No. Is there a second to the motion?
Okay, wait, can I work mine in this discussion before there's a second?
I think we'll allow that.
Okay. Is there, I mean, the one thing, and I talked to Mr. Fincherman, we had this idea. I'm the only one that said we're going to have $40 million to give to schools. And I don't necessarily know if there was a consensus among the board, but I've learned it's better to make the deal before it's too late. And I don't know if the board wanted to discuss how to work that $5,500 cash proffer out. Or are we willing to wait until the project starts and then say this is what we're going to do?
I think that, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Mr. Akers?
I think there are a lot of things that are going to be needed, not only because of this project, but because of the fact that the county is changing, and the fact that the county is, the more people are going to come in, not because of this project necessarily, but there's going to be a need for more libraries. There's going to be a need for more recreational facilities. And this $5,000 that you're speaking of, Mr. Thomas, is certainly going to help pay for that. I realize that part of this $5,000, $5,500 of whatever that number is going to help pay for schools. But I don't know that, and maybe I misunderstood your question. If I did, I apologize. But I'm not sure that I'm willing to say the $5,500 would be dedicated to schools. And I'm not sure if that's what you were asking or not.
That's what I'm really asking is we haven't talked about if it is all dedicated for schools, if it's 60 for schools, 30% fire and rescue, 10% sheriff.
But I wonder if Mr. Fincham has looked at that process as to coming up with the $5,500. I mean, there had to be some type of reasoning as to why the number is $5,500.
No, that's what's left from the 17,000, based on, that's why I was trying to get Dan to not count the rail station land, which I ain't done yet. So,
My question to Dan would be, are you willing to lower the value of your property and increase your cash value? But Mr.
at the,
Fincham.
maybe at the back end of your project, Mr. Sloan.
I think that the fiscal impact study speaks for itself. The project is principally a generator of jobs and revenues for this county. I think the county is going to have lots of decisions to make as to how it spends its revenues in the future. We're talking about a small portion of the revenue stream that's associated with this. I think that your issue is a good one. I think it's the board's issue for how in the future you make a decision regarding funds associated with any development.
Oh, yeah,
We're
that's
not the only project that's putting up cash as well as land, and I assume that you'd make such decisions comprehensively based on the needs of the county and all schools.
If I ever get in trouble, I want you as my lawyer. But before you go, your fiscal impact that I have is like $500 million. That's the fiscal impact that it says. That's the additional tax revenue, additional county expenses, and all. $500 million. And then we're going to have $40 million based on the profit.
You're going to have a lot more than
40
that.
million, 44 million.
40 million is what we pay just out of pocket. So
Pure
every home
Right.
there basically starts having paid $5,500 to the county. Before it pays any taxes, before the businesses pay any taxes, before anything else is paid, that's what they pay in order to come and settle in this county.
Okay, and theoretically, that $5,500 is 3 years of a school student. I think the county shares something like that. You don't have to know that.
Well, they're
but
paying taxes as well, and I assume that your tax structure is in part, and that's, all of your other stuff, but that's to pay the costs.
That's kind of the delta.
It's the difference between, this number is supposed to be about the capital side, as you know.
Okay. Period.
Okay, still have the motion on the floor?
I do.
Yeah,
All right, I have it now.
I'll second this motion just to bring it to a vote.
Okay, motion been, what's your motion, Mr. Seeley? To continue to win?
To our next meeting.
All right, Mr. Seeley motions to continue to our next meeting,
What effect does that
seconded by Vice Chairman.
have? What effect does that have to the applicant?
Mr. Fincham, Vice Chairman, said what effect would that have on the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I think you'd have to ask the applicant that. I mean, it's within the time frame allowed by law. If the board votes to defer this meeting, you're perfectly within your right to do so.
Okay. Is that, Mr. Sloan, do you want to respond?
Mr. Chairman, all it does is postpone our work in getting folks in here, getting jobs in, and working with the trains. It's within your authority to postpone.
Okay. Motion been made and properly second. Board members will proceed to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Same. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, what was it? It's up to you, Chief.
I seconded Mr. Silly's motion, so I'm going to give him the courtesy vote.
All right. It fails 3-2. Okay? All right. I do have a few questions myself. I would like to have an opportunity to get some of these in. Let's see, Mr. Fincham. And I just want you to remind me again with the, I'm concerned about the people who live all along this corridor.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of it's industrial. And I can tell you right now, this project came in here 7 years ago, basically wanting to put a junkyard in. And, I said, heck no. And we made these folks jump through a lot of hoops. We developed our own sub-area committee, and we basically told them what they had to do based on the citizen input from this community. But if we did nothing, what can happen with this industrial area, this heavy industrial area? I can ride across the road, right across the river into Hanover County, and it stinks every day because of the type of business, the heavy industrial businesses there. What are the kinds of things that, right now I have opportunity to demand what goes there. If I do nothing, I can't demand what goes there. Is that correct? What happens if I do nothing?
Mr. Chairman, I believe as part of your last packet, I included the uses that were permitted in the M1 zoning district.
Right.
You've got a large number of uses, some by right, some that might still require a special use permit if it was very heavy, quarry, types of uses that we all know there are some uses the board still reserves the right for a special use permit. I believe that number is in excess of 700 acres of land that is currently zoned industrial. So within that industrial zoning, anything that is allowed by right under the M1 district could go in there subject to site plan approval, not subject to any zoning action by the Board of Supervisors. So within the by right uses, there are any one of a number of what might be considered fairly heavy industrial types of uses. Quite a few manufacturing uses, quite a few uses that might be significant traffic generators. Some of those would still be subject to VDOT review and approval in terms of access, but your access management provisions would be less stringent under the existing M1 than is proposed with this project. So yes, on 700 acres or so, it's already zoned M1. In theory, there are a large number of uses that are permitted either by right or by special exception that can go on this property.
Okay. And all the legal requirements been met for this rezoning?
We believe they have, Mr. Rozelle. The appropriate letters of notification were submitted. We believe it was properly advertised.
Does it comply with our comp plan and our sub-area plan?
Yes, sir. We believe that it is generally consistent with the plan.
The vote on the planning commission, what was that?
Planning Commission recommended approval. It was either 4-0 or 5-0. I believe one person was absent that night.
Okay. And with the special tax district, would that also give us the opportunity to raise additional funds for schools?
Yes, sir. Recognizing the concern about, I'll use the term hold harmless, which has been used by some of the board members. We specifically requested that the applicant consider a safety net, so to speak, in the event that, is our review of these proffers and the impacts, that there was some difference or some negative figure that might be attributable to the county. and the applicant has agreed to, you can call it a special district, a tax district. There are any one of a different number of designations which have different requirements, but the applicant has agreed to the creation of one or more of those districts at the county's request.
Okay. All right, I think it's really all the questions I have. You know, quite naturally, we've been dealing with this issue with the sub-area planning group, which was a joint group between the Mattapanai district and the Reedy Church district, and then ultimately approved by the planning committee, which was all the districts represented in that. So I guess we've had a lot of discussion, and we've had one motion, and if there's other motions, we take those, more debate. We're open for that, but
Mr. Chairman, notwithstanding Mr. Seeley's wanting to ask more questions, I think it's quite apparent from this that this board is ready to vote on this tonight. And I have prepared a motion for this board to consider. Well, I've had it prepared, I should say. And if you would allow, I'd like to read that motion.
absolutely.
Whereas the rezoning request is RZ 08-2009 for Virginia Land Investment LLC appears to be consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and future land use map, and whereas the application, including the general land plan, the phasing plan, and the proffers, when combined with the proposed Carmel Church Station development regulations, appear to meet and in some instances exceed the public purposes of the Caroline County PUD regulations, and whereas the Planning Commission found, and the board should concur with such findings as follows: that the tracts at issue are suitable for the general type of planned development district proposed in terms of the relation to the comprehensive plan, the physical characteristics of the land, and the relation to the surrounding area; that the tracts are planned to be adequately related to major roads, utilities, public facilities, and services; that adequate evidence of unifying control has been presented; that the proposed agreements, contracts, deed restrictions, sureties, dedications, contributions, guarantees, and other instruments of control are suitable, whereas because the application appears to further the health, safety, welfare, and good zoning practices of the county, and because the public purposes of the county's PUD and general regulations would be satisfied to at least an equivalent degree by doing so, I move that the Board of Supervisors approve rezoning request RZ 08-2009, subject to the following modifications to the PUD and general zoning and subdivision regulations. 1, sections 2 through 10 of Division 3 of Article 11 of the zoning ordinance are here superseded by the provisions of the GLP and the phasing plan, the proffers, and the Carmel Church Station development regulations. 2, for any other general zoning and or subdivision regulation that is inconsistent with the provisions specifically addressed in the GLP, the phasing plan, the proffers, and or the Carmel Church Station development regulations. The GLP, the phasing plan, proffers, and or development regulations shall control. 3, any water and or wastewater distribution treatment facilities approved by the Director of Public Works for the development shall be deemed to be found consistent with the comprehensive plan pursuant to Virginia Code 15.2-22232.A.
Second.
All right, motion's been made to approve RZ 08-2009 Virginia Land Investment LLC applicant. Motion been made by Mr. Popowich, seconded by Mr. Akers. Board members ready to proceed to vote?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question on number 3, under the whereas, the second 1, 2, 3, fourth whereas.
On the motion?
On the motion.
Okay, what's your question?
Any water and or wastewater distribution treatment facilities approved by the Director of Public Works for the development shall be found consistent? Ev-
Should be public utilities. Probably should be public utilities.
Yeah, but, so there will be no discussion on what the water development or the treatment facilities will be among